I had a seminary professor who said that good leadership is disappointing people at a rate they can handle. Because anything that changes is going to disappoint someone. And so you don't have to be a jerk about it, but you do need to understand that it will disappoint people and they do have emotional connections to things.
Welcome to the DMF podcast, where you'll find great conversations with interesting people who have been called to serve. We'll meet impactful charities, dive deep into pressing health topics, and learn from servant leaders working to see, be, and spread light. At the end of each episode, we hope you're inspired to realize your own unlimited potential to change the world for the better. Join us as we work to create a region of the healthiest, most purpose-driven people on the planet. Welcome to the DMF Podcast Lead with Light series, hosted by me, Pastor Devlin Brooks, the CEO of Churches United. In the Lead with Light series, we explore the program's curriculum, talking with vibrant leaders, demonstrating the very principles we're teaching, and introducing you to a variety of opportunities to take advantage of this dynamic leadership program. And in this episode, we visited with Pastor Mary Suomala Folkerds, the lead pastor at the Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd in Moorhead, Minnesota, a vibrant and growing church situated in the middle of an exploding residential neighborhood in this small prairie city. You heard me right, growing church. A pretty rare and luxurious position to be in nowadays for faith communities. So what's the secret sauce in an age when the media headlines tell us that the church is dead? We'll explore with this dynamic, thoughtful, and bold faith leader. Let's find out why Pastor Mary is certain that the church is not dead. Let's dig in. Mary, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it so much. So, Pastor Mary, I told you we were going to start this out with a bit of fun.
Okay.
We're going to do some true or false questions.
Okay, I'm scared.
Rapid fire.
Okay, I'm going to be brave.
Okay, be brave. True or false? You and I have history.
True.
True or false? Your husband may or may not have been a mentor to me in seminary.
True, but he said you mostly just talked about plumbing.
You actually jumped right into question number 3, because question number 3 was going to be true or false during a class named Christian Public Leader, in which I was supposed to spend 3 hours a week with Aaron, shadowing him at work, learning how to be a pastor. True or false, instead we sat in his office and he regaled me with plumbing stories for 3 hours a week.
True, and it's because I've met him and I've lived with him for 20-something years, and he actually used to write plumbing-themed poetry, love poetry to me when we were dating. He compared me to the beauty of the white porcelain on a toilet, and lots of different, my voice was maybe a faucet, but a Kohler faucet or a Growy, something nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, not like one of those basic run-of-the-mill faucets.
No, No off-brand. This was quality stuff. So the
aesthetics were involved.
And somehow that worked. I don't know anything about plumbing, but it's he was really into it.
It says something about one of the two of you.
And that's not even his full-time job. That's funny. Okay.
True or false, your husband loves plumbing more than pastoring?
Yeah. He loves Jesus and he loves people, but all the other parts of pastoring are not his favorite thing. Yeah. And so he has lots of interests, way too many interests. I'm the stable, secure one who has just keeps going with one job, and he's the one who re-careers every number of years. But he did tell me he figured out what he wanted to be when he grew up, and he's doing it now. So only took to 47.
Well, that's fair. All right, yeah. Renaissance man.
He loves stuff.
Okay, true or false? We are both pastors in the same denomination.
True.
Which is?
The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.
And what does that denomination mean to you?
I think this is a big question. It means a lot of things to a lot of people. My particular congregation, we are very Lutheran, but we don't necessarily look very Lutheran. Like theologically, we're so right on. But our traditional Lutheran worship may not look like traditional Lutheran worship in other Lutheran churches in our denomination. We kind of perhaps don't include all the liturgy. We would be traditional light. And then our contemporary worship, I think people would feel at home from maybe a more evangelical background, but also it's still very Lutheran. So if you're Lutheran, you'd feel at home there. So we're kind of an interesting variety of Lutheran.
And for us, the Midwest is the epicenter of Lutheranism, right? I mean, so if you're listening to this from some other area in the country, the ELCA may not have the influence that it has here.
And I did read a statistic that Cass and Clay County has the highest concentration of Lutherans in the whole country. And so you can say Lutherans are dense here. And you can take that however you want to.
Do we say that from the pulpit?
No,
never.
Because what if they took it the wrong way?
Right. Mm-mm. Every congregation is a lovely congregation.
That is true.
All right. So true or false, once upon a time, you also were my officially assigned mentor in like my 6th year of being a pastor.
True. And that was silly. Because what did I have to teach you? Like, you know a lot of stuff and you've had like decades of careers, plural probably. And here I was like, okay, tell me about, how to do, like, do you need help with your first funeral or wedding? And you're like, I've already done all that stuff. And I'm like, okay. But
we have to follow the rules.
Yes. And actually, the one thing I think is valuable no matter what is good leadership, and having people to talk to is important no matter where you are in your career.
Amen. You just sold this whole episode.
Whoa.
Right? That was unplanned, by the way. Unplanned.
Whoa. I didn't even know.
Okay. One more really important true or false. True or false, the church is dead.
False! Exclamation point.
All right. Wrap it. We can cut right here, right?
Boom. Yeah.
So this is why I brought you in today. Tell us a little bit about Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd, and then we'll expound upon the question. All right?
Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd is a lovely place full of lovely and flawed people, and we have a lot of people in every age demographic. We are a growing congregation on the south side of Moorhead. I would say our strongest things that people love about Good Shepherd is that it is so family friendly, and we have great music, and I think all of the people can feel cared for. I mean, we're not perfect, but I think in general, we do a pretty good job of caring for the people who enter our doors or who we leave our doors to go hang out with.
So give us a little historical context. So this is a new campus, correct?
Relatively new.
Yes.
Actually, it's old enough that we need to fix things now.
Okay.
So Good Shepherd was started in the 1950s in Mid-Moorhead, as I like to call it, just south of Concordia College. And it was there until 2007. And then in 2007, built a new campus in further South Moorhead. And so since then, it's been growing and doing lovely things. I came to Good Shepherd in 2012, and I started as associate pastor, and now I'm lead pastor. And fun fact, I also went to the old Good Shepherd when I was in high school. I got confirmed there. I got married there. And so I know both Good Shepherds.
cradle to grave. Look at you.
Yeah, but I had these wild years where I left for 12 years. And I went to seminary in Chicago and lived in Brazil and was a pastor in southern Minnesota and then came back. So I guess it wasn't too wild.
So for those that have spent some time in Fargo-Moorhead, like south of Concordia, give us a landmark where the church would have been.
South of, Eventide. It was right by Eventide Senior Living. And actually, so it was this beautiful 1950s modern building with great angles. And when the building was sold in 2007, there was the hope that maybe it could be used for something by Eventide. But ultimately, that just wasn't practical. And so now where the little fitness center of Eventide is, that's built on part of the property where the old church used to stand.
Okay. That's helpful. What was the precipice for moving in the first place to South Moorhead?
Well, I think what was happening was Eventide was growing and is growing. We do have a big boom in our oldest population group in Fargo-Moorhead. And so Eventide kept on adding. And so they were adding on 2 or 3 sides of the church, which was lovely, and Eventide needed to grow, but that was hard to be a growing congregation surrounded by the needs of independent living, senior living, and the step up of assisted living and the actual nursing home care. And so all of that was growing up around the old Good Shepherd. And so it's great for Eventide, and we still have great connections there, but it just didn't help us grow.
So full disclosure, Lutherans have a big tie to Eventide, right? So there was some interest in assisting them while the church made a move for itself too. So
yep, and
double bonus.
And South Moorhead continues to grow. We have everything around us is growing and bursting right now. And the one field directly to the west of us now has been platted. Now there's construction out there. They're paving roads and putting in utilities. And I believe residential and commercial things are going to be coming up in the next year.
So tell us a little bit about what the campus is now.
Well, the campus is a place that we are barely able to contain all of the activity happening right now. We had been growing incrementally up to 2020. And then, as we all know, we lived through COVID, and we weren't sure what the church landscape would look like after COVID. And so, but people started coming back to church, and that keeps happening for us, and new people keep joining. So that now this year we had more people engaged in participating in worship and activities than we did in 2019, 2020. And so now we're starting to relook at how are we going to house people? How do we have to change our scheduling? Will we need to add on? These are the brainstorming questions we have right now, because we built an education wing in 2018, and we're already bursting out of that education wing for our church school programming on Wednesday and Sunday. We also have a cool thing where we have a gym at our church, a full-size gym that we built in partnership with the city of Moorhead. So community activities take place there on a regular basis. We also let area schools use it for various practices. The pickleballers have taken over our gym during most days, the cult of pickleball. Yeah. And don't tell anybody at my church, but I played once for the first time recently, and it was fun. I think I might be aging into pickleball. We also have a worship space that gets filled with people, and it has beautiful stained glass windows, and yet we also have like a rock band in there. And so we're always trying to figure out how to use this traditional looking space to have modern Christian worship and also traditional Christian worship. And so we got a lot of exciting things happening at our campus. And then we've got this big round fellowship area where donuts and coffee reign supreme on Sunday mornings. And then we have Wednesday night community meals every Wednesday. So it's a wild place.
That big round community area, was where I did my candidacy interview. I don't know if you know this.
Were you in the sun porch right off the big round room?
Nope. It was the little library-ish room.
Oh, yeah.
That's where,
resource room.
Yeah, those stern-faced people, ran me through the gauntlet of questions about whether I should be. Did they grill you? No, they didn't actually.
Darn it.
They didn't. They were very kind. Very supportive the whole time. Like, I didn't have to worry about it at all.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah, I think I had the 3 kindest people on the whole committee.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm really sad that happened like that.
Yeah, there should be some terror, right?
There should be a little terror. You should have your metal tested a little bit, I would think.
Yeah. Well, I snuck in. The back door. Do I still get to hang with the rest of the pastors?
You always get to hang with the rest of the pastors because you're awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I will be the number 1 fan in your fan club too. Can we start one of those, Pastor Mary fan club?
No.
Somebody's already beaten me to it. I know it.
No, there's no fan club, but I do like to be wherever people are. And sometimes I have to close my office door just to protect the world from me. Not to shut the world out. But sometimes I'm like, in order for me to focus on what I need to do, I can't keep joining the party of everything that's happening in the building because there's so much going on that I just have to shut myself in, lock myself in and be like, now I will focus.
Okay. And we're going to focus.
Okay.
So you've set the setting about Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. For our standards, I mean, if you talk about Fargo-Moorhead, you're a big church.
Yes.
Considered for most of the folks that would hear this podcast, 30, 40, 50 people in a congregation, that's pretty typical, regardless of denomination here, right? But you guys are a big church.
We've got about 3,000 members. And during the school year, what that means is we see about 1,000 people coming to worship activities each week. During the summer, I feel like summer is short and there's just fewer people around. We still have lots of exciting things going on, but it's for fewer people. And if people are able to get to a lake or travel and not worry about blizzards, we're not going to fault them for that. And so we're always like, how can we meet you where you're at? So take us with you and have a lovely summer.
You're missing a golden opportunity to lay that Lutheran guilt.
But I don't think that we need to actually put guilt on people. I actually think people experience enough guilt from a lot of other sources. And Amen. I was doing some reading that
Amen.
In the place, since religion has played a lesser role in culture, it has not lessened the amount of guilt people have. Because we still need to perform as the best parents, as the best in our careers, as the best to all these cultural things that are demanded of us. And our house has to be a certain way and the cars have to be a certain way. And everything that we do has to be a certain level of perfection. And so people are getting guilt from everywhere. So we're just thinking, why would we add more guilt to people when I don't think that's how Jesus actually reaches out to us? So we just want to actually say, hey, where are you at? Jesus wants to be there with you. We love it when you come into the building. It's wonderful to worship together as a big group. But if your life is pulling you in too many directions, we're not going to come down on you and say, you have to be in this building right now. We're going to say, hey, let us go with you. We've got tools, resources, online, social media, all these things where we're reaching out. And we'd love to resource you and help you know that Jesus is with you. Why offer more guilt?
You just converted everyone listening to this podcast right now. You're just going to have that much bigger of a problem.
I don't have that much power. I'm in sales, not management. And so Jesus is the one that does the converting, and I just get really excited about it.
You better get ready for 1,500 on a Sunday now.
Well, then also help us deal with what to do with all these people. We've got to figure out if we need to add more worship services, if we need to add different days or times. Will we need to add on to the campus at some point? Help us figure it out, actually. That's what I would love brainstorming about.
So, going back to the original premise of this podcast, the reason that I wanted to talk to you, the big true or false question, right? Is church dead? I found it interesting earlier that when you said that Good Shepherd moved from its original spot to this next spot, it was already growing.
It was a healthy church then.
2007. Yeah. It was already healthy. Mm-hmm. You moved to South Moorhead. There's other churches in South Moorhead, so that isn't the secret sauce, the fact that you moved to South Moorhead.
No. And so, there is something to new buildings. Like, there's just something to getting a new building that does, I think, give you some extra juice. But that can't be your only juice.
But that was 2007. We're nearly 20 years past new building, right?
Yes.
Nearly 20 years past new building. So that in itself isn't why Good Shepherd continues to grow.
Yeah, that's correct.
Do you, as a staff, talk about this?
Constantly.
Okay. And what have you settled upon?
Not about growth, but about how to be the church and what is the church is what we talk about. And for me, I think being passionate and being creative, being willing to make some excellent mistakes. I believe our whole church staff is, none of us are perfect, but we're all so passionate. Like, we all do really believe in Jesus. We all believe in the power of coming together and encountering God in powerful ways. And we are willing to figure out, hey, let's try this thing and see if it works. We had a pray ground for a while, and in our sanctuary. So a pray ground, not a playground.
Okay.
And we thought, this is one way. There's so many kids and they're so loud, and some churches divide the kids out from main worship, and I get it because kids are loud. But we have this belief that the way you learn how to worship is that you participate in worship. And so we had a pray ground with these mats on the floor for a while, and quiet toys and tables, and we had some church seating around the pray ground so parents could be nearby but also pay attention. And after a while, it did kind of turn into the preschool mosh pit. And the acoustics in our worship space are such that everything carries. The sound just carries from anywhere in the room. And so we have gotten rid of the playground because it did solve some things of little kids playing quietly, but also parents didn't want anything to do with their kids. And parents were like, I just want to go sit on the other side and just be a part of worship. But yet that didn't work because preschoolers aren't good at making themselves play quietly.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, shocking. But that was one of our holy experiments. And now, we try to double down on, we have great activity bags for kids as they come into worship. We try to involve kids. Our children's messages are amazing. Deacon Julie is the best children's minister, hands down, in the world. We try new things, and they don't always work. But I think we're willing to try, and we do not want to shame parents for bringing their kids and their problems into church. Because everybody has kids. Well, and if you have kids, then you probably have problems too. So we want people to come to church, and we want to try to figure out ways of doing it creatively. And so our whole thing is, we're not gonna, we don't say, oh, we can't do this. We say, what's another way to accomplish the mission? Throughout COVID, we kept saying, we're not gonna focus on what we can't do. We're gonna focus on what we can do. So we never got into political fights of should we be shut down or not shut down. We were like, there are more than one way to be the church. There's many ways to be the church. We will focus on reaching out to people in ways that don't involve large crowds. We'll do one-on-one ministry. We'll do calls to people. We'll try to make our videos as good as we can make them. These are all the things we tried to do. And so since then, we've just carried on. We're not going to get mad that kids are in sports and that sports are all year long. We're not going to get mad at the schools. Why are they having practices so much? We're going to say, no, these kids and families have chosen to be a part of it. They also want to be a part of our church family. So how can we go out to them and how can we keep in touch with them and minister to them wherever they are?
But what about the good old days, Pastor Mary?
Two things. Were the good old days all that good? And also, everything else in the world is changing. Why would we expect the church to not change? Like, it's made up of humans just like every other institution. Our God hasn't changed, but the world is changing, and it is hard. And yet, there's still ways to be the church.
So what I loved listening to there is the intentionality that you and your staff approach being church, right? Specifically your church, you know. So the premise of this particular podcast is leadership, right? And our goal is to grow all kinds of leaders that lead with light. And so to bring it back to that, like, the growth that you're experiencing at Good Shepherd also doesn't just happen, right? I mean, it has to be cultivated. Mm-hmm. So you have been lead pastor now for
7 years.
7 years. So to a certain degree, it's your responsibility to cultivate that culture. Can you speak to that? Like, when you came in as lead pastor, like, did you have a vision of where you wanted to go?
We were already a growing church. And so people who came before me did beautiful work, and also we're not perfect either, but we already were a growing church. I think what I brought into the role was my focus coming in. I said, I'd love us to be about joy and excellence, not about perfection, but joy and excellence. Like, what are the things that we can be excellent at? The things that we can just be passionate about. I think our worship is something that we can be joyful and excellent in. And our children's ministry is something we can be joyful and excellent in. And so that doesn't mean it's perfect. And there's all sorts of things we're having to adjust all the time. But if you're actually willing to give yourself over to something joyful, I think that's what we need in this world, because it's so easy to be cynical.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And so those were the two things I came in wanting to focus on. And what I bring to the table is that I just keep showing up. I'm willing to just keep showing up and being consistent. Mm-hmm. And I am not afraid to look stupid, which you can see that anytime we get together. I'm not afraid to look stupid if it's for the sake of something important. And I love the people in our church, and it's hard for me to be offended. I don't take offense easily. Mm-hmm. And I think when you deal with people on a regular basis, lots of different kinds of people, a lot of people have different expectations and set points and personalities. And I try really hard not to be offended when somebody comes in and complains about something or doesn't like something, or they're entitled to their own view and opinion. And if I were to get offended at all the things that people get upset about, that would be very stressful.
In my limited experience as a pastor, there are some crazy things that people can get upset about.
Yes. And the reason it is because I think people have an emotional connection to church. Because if this is a place where you've experienced the presence of God, and maybe you've experienced being cared for at a time of need, maybe when you've lost a loved one, or you yourself have been going through your own personal stuff and the church has been there for you, you start to feel this ownership over it. So then if all of a sudden they change the color of the carpet in the sanctuary, you're going to be ticked off because when you were ministered to that one time, the carpet was red and now it's wheat colored. What? How dare they change the color of the carpet in this place where I was ministered to?
Ironically, you go there because I've been with my church, Faith Lutheran, for 8 years. And within the first year that I was there, the sanctuary carpet replacement came up. And I cannot tell you how long it took for us to finally get new carpet in the sanctuary.
It's a big thing.
It is a big thing.
Well, that's one of the joys about a new building. We had what was cool about Good Shepherd is it wasn't just a brand new church where everyone who entered it was brand new. It was actually bringing a big chunk of the old congregation to this new place, and then new people also joining. So by the time I came in 2012, it was a big mix of maybe half and half, like half the people who'd been there in the old building and half who were brand new. But yet when you have a critical mass of people that's new enough, along with people that are new in a new place, or they're old but they're in a new place, there isn't necessarily that ownership over the color of carpet. So you don't necessarily have to fight about tradition in that way, because it's just a mix of different people. And when you're mixed up together, you can't have those same old allegiances. So the new building does solve some of that stuff.
Until you need new carpet.
But I also feel like in this new place, we've had enough new leaders and iterations of church. We break stuff regularly so that people aren't too upset about these minor changes.
If you haven't already, head to BeLight.org to sign up for the monthly Lead with Light newsletter. While you're there, you can also find past editions on the Lead with Light blog and register for upcoming trainings. Also, be on the lookout for the official Lead with Light book, which will be released later this year. Is that part of the plan? You intentionally break stuff just to keep people aware on their toes?
I had a seminary professor who said that good leadership is disappointing people at a rate they can handle. Because anything that changes is going to disappoint someone.
Sure.
And so you don't have to be a jerk about it, but you do need to understand that it will disappoint people, and they do have emotional connections to things. And so if you can still keep changing stuff, but care for the people as you change it, that's the best case scenario, even though they don't always like you.
That's beautiful.
It is beautiful. I love disappointing people at a rate they can handle.
Another t-shirt slogan.
We are going to make so many good t-shirts, Devlin.
We are. The audience doesn't know, but we have a secret retirement plan between the two of us that we're going to do a t-shirt company. And we have so many pithy, theologically based t-shirts that are inappropriate that...
Oh, man. Old Lutheran, are you listening?
Yeah.
We are coming at you with all these ideas.
David, give us a call. Like you thought you were making money before.
I know. It's so good. Okay, but getting back to church carpet.
Back to church carpet.
I was at Gooseberry Playground with my son some years ago, and I started talking to this woman, and I don't remember how we got on the topic of church. And she said, well, I mean, I guess I still believe in Jesus, but church just is so besides the point for me. And I just said, why is that? And she said, because the church I grew up in, they seem to fight more about the color of the carpet than tell us anything about Jesus. And it was just...
That's piercing.
It was a dagger to my heart. Because I know that is the case. And it isn't intentional.
Yeah.
And these churches that fight about carpet, they're not bad people, and they love Jesus. And yet somehow the conversation has been taken over in bad ways.
And for those that, missed the symbolism there, we argue over a whole lot more than just carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We'll argue about anything.
Yeah.
Oh, just give us a topic.
So you're the leader, the lead pastor. Talk to us a little bit. So the church world probably is, when it comes to leadership, for those that aren't in it, the whole call process, all of that is maybe a little foreign to people. But as lead pastor, you still have a lot of influence over what the team looks like.
Yeah.
Right? Talk to, your current staff has been together for some time now.
Well, I mean, actually, we've got all sorts of longer timers and medium timers and shorter timers.
So talk about that process as a leader. How have you cultivated this particular team that you have right now?
I think it's the hardest and most important job that I have. And it's other leaders have used this analogy too. It's like getting the right people on the bus in the right places. And right now, I love my bus. We have such a great bus, but I also know that nothing is ever frozen in time. So it's always trying to care for the people that you have and looking ahead to what future needs might be. And we've made really hard choices about, sometimes there's been people who have no longer had a place on the bus, and folks say churches should never reconfigure or not keep the same staff forever and ever and ever. And I think, well, we are using the offerings that people voluntarily give us, and we have to use those in the most proper ways. We want to make sure that we're not just paying somebody who used to do something really important, and yet now the way the church has become structured, we need a new skill set. So hopefully we're not being jerks when we have those conversations with people, but we do need to always make sure everyone who's on the bus is doing something that needs to be done for the church. And so this is the hardest thing ever, of letting people go or welcoming more people on or changing the seat that somebody was in.
Especially from the standpoint that sometimes it's only because of change, right? It has nothing to do with the person's skill set or...
Well, their skill set may be a great skill set, but then all of a sudden now you have to do things with video and podcasting, and they don't have that skill set.
And so through no fault of their own, your church has to change.
And so one conversation we have, and it's not easy, but the difference between contract relationships and covenant relationships. Contracts have beginnings and endings. I sound like a terrible boss right now. Like the whole, like I put it, it's like my HR hat mixed with like my pastor hat. So contracts have beginning and endings. Covenants are ongoing. The covenant we have is we are brothers and sisters in Christ, because everyone who works at our church also is a person of faith who believes in Jesus. And so that relationship goes on whether they're working at the church or not working at the church. But it is tricky, because working in a place where you bring your emotional self, your spiritual self, your professional skills, it gets all combined together. And yet then at certain times we have to separate those and say, okay, the covenant relationship is going to continue, but somehow the working relationship has to change or end. And those are hard conversations.
Difficult.
Yeah.
And that falls to you. I mean, you're the senior pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so we do have, what I think is beautiful is we do have a mix of people who have been on staff for a very long time and people who are newer on staff. And some of the transitions that we've had to go through, I think, have gone smoothly. And there's been some that I have regrets of, I wish I could have handled it better. But yeah, there's our congregation engagement director, Linda. She's been on staff longer than I have. But then also our newest creative arts director has been on staff for about 1.5 years. And then everyone is between 1.5 years and 25 years on staff.
Yeah. So we've kind of set the stage. You've mentioned it earlier. It seems like Good Shepherd kind of is in this continual mode of change for really good reasons. You're still a growing church, which there's not a lot of faith communities that get to say that, right? How do you approach that then from a staff standpoint? Looking at what that does to form your week, for activities and for worship, but B, how are you guys approaching that from a long-term standpoint? You and I have had many conversations off the air about your current challenges, right? They're not difficulties, they're challenges, they're opportunities. But so how do you approach that from a staff standpoint, in the sense that I think this can be applicable to a lot of leaders in many different arenas? You have a very important task of keeping a big congregation happy each week, but also you have to look towards where's this future taking us and the challenges that stand in your way.
Okay, there's so many directions I could go. One of the basic things is our staff has weekly meetings, and so sharing what are the things we all need to know, how can we address something, who do we need to thank, what help do we need to get for the coming week. So we try to stay on the same page that way. But then also I do staff supervision, and I think that's something that a lot of pastors don't do. Excuse me, even if they have a staff, because it takes so long. And yet having time for those deep conversations really is important. And so our staff isn't huge. I mean, there's about 10 of us on staff. And yet we do quarterly check-ins where I have a conversation with each person on staff, and we talk about what are the things that you're struggling with right now, what's going well, how are you doing on your goals for this year. So those are opportunities to have some deeper conversation. But that's not the only time we can have conversation, but building in official times is helpful. And then we also have components where if anybody listens to a helpful podcast, or there's a short YouTube video that would be helpful for us, or we've heard somebody's trying something cool, we'll watch that as a staff. And so we'll say, okay, what's this new thing we could try? What's one new thing that we could take with us from that podcast or YouTube video, and actually try it with our people this week or this month. And so I think those are the things that I think keep us going on a good track on a regular basis. But then we're also just always trying to figure out, how do we keep funding this ministry? What's next for us? What do we want to be generous to in the community? How do we get there? And that just means we've got to keep on ministering to people well and having one-on-one conversations with people in the congregation and being available to them. And then also making sure that we're taking time to worship and we're doing the things we need to do to be following Jesus and not just working for Jesus. I don't know if I answered your question because there's too many directions to go.
First of all, I can't wait to hear the feedback after you and your staff sit down and listen to this together.
Oh, crap.
Right? Like, I can't wait to hear from Deacon Julie and Pastor Taylor and Pastor Maggie and Linda, and like after they've listened to this podcast, like, is this the Mary they know, or is this the Pastor Mary that I've invoked out of you today because we're on a podcast?
I think it's the Pastor Mary they know.
Okay.
And also they put up with my crap.
Fair.
They have to deal with me, and that's
Fair.
the whole thing. I don't know I don't know who I am through their eyes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think we've done a pretty good job of putting up with each other. So I have to put up with them, but they have to put up with me too. So it's a two-way street.
So I not to belabor this, but I want to go back to this point earlier. Like, for many of the people that are listening, and quite frankly, for a majority of folks out there that maybe do any amount of reading, any amount of, YouTubing or watching the news, like, there is the dominant story out there is that religion is on the decline, church is dead, and that we're some kind of this antiquated idea of the past, right? And the reason that I wanted to bring you specifically is this idea of what's happening at Good Shepherd, because maybe you can't sit here and in two sentences define to me what's happening there, right? Maybe because to a certain degree, we plan and execute, and then God laughs at us, right? And so there's some of that going on too. You probably can't give me a 10-point bullet list of why Good Shepherd is where it's at this point, but to some degree, you can't deny that there's something special happening at Good Shepherd. And so talk to us about that, because I think for those that don't see it, I'm in your world, right? And I look at you and that church from afar, and I can say there's a lot of envy there. But the people that have given up on church, so to speak, they don't see what's happening. So just what is it like to experience it, and how do we fight back on this adage that the church is dead?
Okay. The church isn't dead. And I don't want to beat up on those small and struggling and dying churches,
right?
Because I do feel like it's hard to figure out that flywheel to get momentum. And I think in some churches where people are tired and there's not very many people, and it does take just a whole bunch of heavy lifting and lifting in a way that's different than anything you've ever done before. Same God, same mission, but the model has to change.
And there are legitimate obstacles, right?
And so if you don't have money, if you don't have people, if you don't have leadership, it is just a tough slog.
Yep.
So what we're doing at Good Shepherd is really intentional, and it's not accidental. And so there was this flywheel of momentum that has been building. And for us now, it's how do we keep on being attentive to what people need, where the Spirit of God is, because we do have so many good things in place. So we're never done. We're never finished and like, oh, we figured it out. But I think it does require consistent leadership. It does require loving people. I think everybody on our staff is humble and hungry and okay, what can we do? What else can we try? And I think having a permission-giving environment of, let's try it. This thing may not work. I think when you're in a dying church and in a struggling church, you don't want to try anything because you're just already years or one bad decision away from closing up. And so it takes too much energy, and it's too scary to think about doing something different. But we have enough people and resources to be creative, even with things that don't cost money. Just we have people willing to say, I'll show up at this thing, I'll give it a try, I'll learn this new skill, let's try this new thing in worship. And that's a momentum that has been building, because instead of saying, why would we try that? We always say, well, why not try that? Why not see if this thing works? And then we've gathered enough people who are excited about what we're doing as a church that more people are willing to help out and say, yeah, I'll show up at this thing. I'll give it a try. And then we're also, we lead with Jesus and not with any, I think, political ideology or personality style. And so for us, we say, if you're willing to come to church and sit next to somebody who has voted differently than you or thinks differently than you about an important social issue, then I think we'll be able to encounter Jesus together, because none of us are actually perfect and have it all figured out and know the will of God perfectly. And so I think that's part of our sauce too. We're willing to welcome people and say, it's okay if you disagree. We're not going to change you. That's up to Jesus. Mm-hmm. But just all those things on a regular basis. I think, and so we've had this momentum building for a long time. And for us now, we just want to keep on, how do we stay hungry? How do we keep on finding a way to meet people where they're at and say, hey, there's a God out there that loves you. Your life has meaning and purpose. You are not alone. Those are really important things.
Yeah. And so probably the most critical question for other faith communities out there is what in that can they take back and to inspire their own faith communities, right? Coming from a small church background myself, the people thing is real, right? I mean, when you have sub 40 people attending congregation, it worships on Sundays and sub 20 in the summer, I mean, there's only so many hands to go around. And so those are realities. And so I suppose that there are some really important questions there, not just for our denomination, but other denominations too, as to what church in the future really means, because how do we continue to throw money and resources and people at these smaller, struggling institutions, while we have churches that, like yours, that have challenges that we can't even imagine? Like, I mean, from the staff point, resource point, land point, like, they're so different worlds.
Well, and I think we need to take seriously the differences in generations as well, and find a way to understand the concerns of each generation and the gifts of each generation, and then be open to new learning as well. I think it's probably a common thing that it's our oldest generations that give the most offering at church. And I believe they grew up in a time where this is just what you did as a good community member, is you give to things beyond yourself. And then there's been, and that's probably now just our silent generation, because we don't have very many of the greatest generation left. Yep. And so that's probably the silent generation. But then it was the boomers and below who were like, institutions have lied to us, and they had very valid points. But then even local churches that, they're institutions as well. So they get caught up in the distrust. And also churches have messed up and betrayed people's trust. And so now different generations have different concerns, but I did read some Barna research. That's an evangelical Christian research company that said for the first time, it's starting to tick up in people who are interested in not just spirituality, but interested in learning about Jesus. And the Gen Z and millennials have a much higher uptick than X and Boomer. And I think older generations think, oh, Jesus is uncool. People want to be spiritual, but not religious. And Jesus isn't a cool thing to bring up. Where I don't think the younger generations actually know a lot about Jesus, but Jesus is compelling. So I think if we put all of our eggs in this Jesus basket of let's introduce you to Jesus as a way of understanding your place in this world and who this God is, Jesus isn't uncool. We can actually share about Jesus.
I think Jesus is a pretty safe bet.
Jesus is a safe bet. It's Jesus's followers that tend to mess things up for people. Are we going to get a t-shirt that says that too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jesus is a safe bet. Hashtag.
So part of it is our oldest generations have been most generous in sharing their resources with church. The youngest generation is actually the most curious about learning who Jesus is. And I think there's a way to combine both the generosity of our older generations with the spiritual hunger of younger generations, and inviting generosity in all of those groups, and sharing just who Jesus is with every age demographic. Because I think it's possible for the people who are, even if there's just 40 people in a congregation on a Sunday, there's still things they don't know about Jesus. I think Jesus still has the power to move anybody, whether they've been like, I've been coming to church for years and it never makes a difference, but I keep coming. Actually, I don't think they would ever say that. I think it does make a difference, because why would they keep coming? Even if it's maybe tired or...
Because I think, to your point earlier, it's very intimate, right? We have these intimate relationships with our churches. Let's not even use that. Our faith communities, right? Mm-hmm. We have these intimate relationships, and you like to believe that you're not giving up on them. And So I one of the things that was kind of percolating in my head when you were speaking is that it's finding a different way to be church, right? I mean, we can't turn back the dial on the fact that, that young people are flooding from our rural areas and that these smaller churches are losing those resources, just like our towns are losing those resources, right? They're the people that don't start small businesses because they've moved away. They're the people that don't come to church because they've moved away. And so I think in there's going to be different models of ministry, and we're going to have to figure out what that looks like in small church ministry.
And you just blew my thinking wide open, because there's so many problems in our world that we think of as our own individual problems, and we've got to figure it out and it's our fault. And it isn't necessarily an individual problem. It's a collective challenge.
Yep.
Just small towns shrinking, young people leaving those towns, going to larger areas, and yet then people get mad at the church for shrinking in that town. Like, why is the church not doing things? But it's like the church is a collective part of this challenge. There's the small businesses, the churches,
the schools that have to consolidate
the schools, and when I was a pastor in southern Minnesota, there were grudges between people in our different churches that my husband and I were pastors at over the closing of the school district and consolidation into a larger district in the 1960s. And so they were mad at each other interpersonally about that. But yet, if you look at the demographics of Minnesota in the 60s, a lot of school districts were consolidating. It wasn't one person's personal beef. It was a collective demographic change. And yet that caused personal struggles between people, and they decided to go to different churches than each other because of where they stood on whether the school should consolidate or not. And so many of our collective challenges we view as an interpersonal fight, and it's not. It's like, we're all in this together. We're in this boat. Like, how can we see that and maybe then have more empathy for one another rather than, I guess I'm just winning and you're losing.
Yeah. Well, Good Shepherd is winning.
We are winning.
You are winning.
Right now. But part of our future challenges is how can we help other people win?
Yep. I love that.
We're on the same team.
I love that.
We're with other churches. I just attended an event at Trinity Lutheran last night, and that was fantastic. There were people from all over at that event.
It's kind of like the Jets and the Sharks, if you know anything about Moorhead, right there.
Right there. No, when I came to Good Shepherd, it was still and I don't know the history of but it was more territorial. Like, these people in this part of town are my people, or these people in these professions are my people, and you get these other people in this other part of town who have other professions. And now I think we're all on Team Jesus. But you know what? At Good Shepherd, that even extends beyond Lutheran churches. We cheer on lovely things that happen in other denominations or non-denominations.
Stop the presses.
We do. We cheer them on. Are they on Team Jesus? We're going to be a supporter. We may not all agree on finer theological points. We may even differ on important social issues. But who benefits when you try to beat up on another church?
Yeah.
No, I don't think anybody. Like, we're all on Team Jesus, so we can have substantive disagreements and yet still cheer each other on if people are finding Jesus in those places.
Amen. Okay, so one of the things that we like to do to wrap these, so Lead with Light, obviously, is a curriculum that's developed by Dakota Medical Foundation to try and generate more leaders who lead with light all across our region. The LIGHT is an acronym. So I'm going to throw you a couple of the acronyms, and I just want gut level reactions from them.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? Yeah. Don't think about this. Okay? I, instilling purpose and meaning in all we do. Pastor Mary, what does I mean to you?
Okay, instilling purpose and meaning in all we do.
So you're thinking.
I'm thinking about it. I think I swim in those waters already. I feel like everything we try to do every week is full of meaning and purpose, and we're trying to like help other people have their meaning and purpose.
Okay, fair. Okay, let's go here.
Okay.
This is I know I've heard you talk about this before. Galvanizing gratitude. Gee, talk about galvanizing gratitude.
That's just fun to say. Galvanizing gratitude.
Right?
Galvanizing gratitude. I think you actually have to galvanize gratitude. I wouldn't use I get the guh, but I think just finding things to be grateful for every day, it's good for us. It's good for our spirits. No matter what is happening in your life, if you can find something to be thankful for, it changes your brain chemicals. My husband talks about this just ridiculously, and I have to be like, enough with the gratitude stuff all the time. But he's in the mental health world, and he's a therapist, and he just says gratitude is so important in our lives because it's so easy to be cynical. And yet being cynical doesn't do anything to help the world.
Aaron is the happiest person, most joyful person I've ever met in my life. True or false?
True. He's ridiculously happy.
Right.
And it's annoying. He's just so interested in learning about everything. Like, he loves learning, and he loves being thankful about it. He really loves good sandwiches. Just good beer and good sandwiches. Every time he tries a new beer, we'll go to a new brewery and he'll try like something and he'll take a sip and he'll be like, oh, that was pretty good. Like, you've said that about the last 200 beers you've tried. And he's just like, oh, it's just the simple things. It's pretty good.
I'm envious. Like, I'm going to grow up to be Aaron. Minus the plumbing.
Yeah. And the piloting. And the...
Okay, I'm never going to grow up to be Aaron.
He just does things that start with P. Pastoring, professoring, plumbing, psychology.
Pastor Mary, what is the single piece of best advice that somebody ever gave you to be a leader?
There's so much good advice out there.
I'll give you two if that helps.
Well, and I'm always trying to learn new things and trying to read different things and experience different things so that I'm not getting stale. Maybe that's tied to some leadership advice about not getting just so stuck in the challenges of each day. If you can find something that brings you joy, some sort of serendipity, some other way to fill your soul, it can keep you more grounded. I wish I really had. Maybe going back to what I said about the professor who said you have to disappoint people at a rate they can handle, because I do find that to be a recurring theme. Mm-hmm. Another theme that I find is that suffering is just part of life. And I think as a leader, it's not my job to take away the suffering in the world because there's just so much suffering. But how can I help you suffer well?
That's beautiful. That, I think, is the most insightful thing I've ever heard about pastoring.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Pastor Mary, Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd, South Moorhead. They can find you online where?
gsmoorhead.com, maybe? You'll find us. Just Good Shepherd.
And I just have to, your social media is it's top notch.
Thank you. I'd have to say our creative arts director, Kyle, does beautiful things. He has a good eye and he loves Jesus, and he loves to find those moments in sermon clips or Bible passages that might need to be something people need to hear or see in their week.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna come back in the future. We're gonna revisit this because I know that you guys are ever evolving, and you've got big decisions to make, even though you don't know what they're going to be and when they're going to happen. But I'd love, after some of those decisions are made, I would love to come back and revisit this conversation.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. You've likely seen the headlines for years. The church is dead, right? Research for decades now has shown that nearly all mainline faith communities, regardless of your religion, have experienced a measurable decline in attendance. Since the post-World War II boom days of church attendance, churches have been perplexed and even concerned over the precipitous drop in the number of people filling the pews on Sundays. There's all kinds of reasons for this decline, of course. The data tells us so, including our ever increasingly busy family schedules, our declining connections to our neighborhoods and communities, and even a loss of faith in large institutions. Whatever the reasons may be, the result is the same. Fewer seats in the seats, so to speak. From rural churches who are witnessing local population decline to big city churches where people just don't see the church as relevant to their daily lives any longer. Faith communities are feeling the pinch. But not at Pastor Mary's Lutheran Church of the Good Shepherd. Pastor Mary is quick, however, to point out that the growth at her church started long before she arrived. After all, growth was one of the driving factors that led this large Lutheran church to move from its historic downtown location to its current campus on the south edge of the growing city. But she certainly has helped to continue this growth pattern. And now this congregation faces some interesting questions that nearly every other faith community would likely be envious of. Like, what if more people from the new housing development that is going up across the street want to attend church there? How would they accommodate them when they already struggle to seat the hundreds who show up for weekly worship services now? Should a church like Good Shepherd expand? Yet again, should a church like Good Shepherd consider another alternative, like a second campus? Should churches nowadays even be considering expansion in the first place? All questions that I find fascinating because they all lead back to Pastor Mary's strong leadership of her congregation. They wouldn't be embracing these questions without that strong leadership. So what is it like to lead a church that has multiple ordained clergy on staff and has defined ways to pack in kids to faith education classes when you don't have the room? How do you lead with an eye on keeping order today while trying to solve the big looming future questions for your congregation? Pastor Mary responded thoughtfully and inspirationally. I appreciated this conversation so much from a colleague whom I work closely with so often. I've admired Pastor Mary's leadership skills from afar for a while, and so it was a tremendous privilege to get to sit down with her and talk about how do we redirect the conversation about declining church participation. She's convinced me that the church is certainly not dead. It's just transforming. And while that may be concerning and even frightening to some, it's also incredibly exciting for those in leadership willing to embrace a new future. This is Pastor Devlin Brooks of Churches United on the DMF podcast series Lead with Light. Remember, we are all called to serve by seeing light, being light, and spreading light. Amen.